So this is pretty interesting. So Ted Cruz got called out by the DNC chair Jaime Harrison, who lost to Lindsey Graham in this previous election. But what happened is this is pretty interesting actually, because the butt of the joke here is Jimmy Carter. So as you can see here from the article, it says DNC chair hits Cruz over Biden criticism. Quote: "You aren't qualified enough to tie his shoes." And so basically, what ended up happening here was Ted Cruz, and this is a common Republican talking point, is actually to, I guess, now compare presidents that they don't like to Jimmy Carter. So Jimmy Carter was the president right before Reagan. He's often the butt of the jokes of Republicans, largely, I think, because he was somebody who was a non-interventionist for the vast majority of his tenure, and basically at the time of the Iran hostage crisis, and this kind of what ended up getting Reagan elected, was that Jimmy Carter didn't want to be hawkish when it came to Iran. During the Iran hostage crisis, he could have easily just gone in and just like basically declared war. And that's what it seemed like Americans wanted to do, be gung-ho and be stupid. But Jimmy Carter didn't want to do that. And it takes a lot of, patience and basically values to not have done that. So basically what had happened under his administration was stagflation, under Jimmy Carter's 4 years. Stagflation is when there's very high inflation and the economy is stagnating, unemployment is high. And so it was because of the oil crises essentially that caused this. The oil crises were massive because that's really what brought the Soviet Union under as well, because the Soviet Union didn't have any real economic abilities. They just relied upon their oil industry. So once the oil prices tanked, their economy tanked, and they ended up collapsing because of that. But the U.S. and all the really countries around the world had an oil shortage as a result of the 1973 embargo that was put on by Saudi Arabia in response to Israel, in a protest against Israel, and then the following one in 1979 with the Iran hostage crisis. So the oil crisis really brought on a lot of issues with the economy and ended up being a big reason for the stagflation that ended up resulting. And so Jaime Harrison says, Senator Cancun, you aren't qualified enough to tie his shoes, let alone speak his name disparagingly. Unlike you, President Carter has never betrayed his oath and never abandoned his people in the midst of disaster. He has dedicated his entire life to helping people, the least of these. And that was, of course, a response to a Ted Cruz tweet that reads, Joe Biden is Jimmy Carter 2.0, and a Breitbart link. So, of course, something that even people who didn't like Jimmy Carter as president really like him as a human being, because basically what he's dedicated his entire life to post-presidency has been just, building homes and just doing everything he can to help people, literally physically, right? The dude is definitely an Iron Man. I mean, he's beat 2 cancers now. I think he had like a melanoma cancer that had spread to his brain. He beat that with the new form of cancer treatment, the immunotherapy that they have. And then I think he had another cancer. I forget which one it is that he had, the second one. But I think he beat 2 cancers, or maybe it was a recurring one of the first one. I forget. But it's unfortunate for Jimmy Carter because he held back. He prevented, he didn't take the war hawkish move. And so he ended up, being on the brunt end of that. And then Reagan comes in, Reagan coming in and basically, he was essentially somebody who was coming in as a war hawk and somebody who was going to do all of this unnecessary tax cutting and stuff like that. And it was under Reagan that the huge cuts of the top marginal tax rates and stuff happened. And that's not really the solution because the real problem was the oil crisis. So that was what caused the stagflation, of course. And it's pretty crazy to see this, but definitely calling Ted Cruz Senator Cancun, it is sad that it seems that he was able to live that down. The fact that he ran away from his home state in the midst of a major crisis that happened where his whole state was freezing to death and he ran away like a little pussy. Seriously embarrassing, and he definitely should never be able to live that down.